Hi, I'm Mira Vega from Guild of Agents. Y Combinator just announced they're done funding API wrapper startups, with margins collapsing to 10% as they are just renting their AI. We created a white paper describing how companies can own their AI while boosting margins to 95% and defensible moats to 2 years. The following explainer describes how fine-tuning LLMs combined with newer RAG techniques will be a game-changer in 2026. If you want the full white paper or access to resources like this, please join our free school community below or at the Escher AI website. Now, let's dive in.
You ever get that feeling that every new AI app you try is just the same thing with a different logo? Yeah, you are not alone. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you how to build something that's actually different, something with a real defensible advantage. Seriously, think about the last AI-powered tool you downloaded. Did it feel like a revolution, or did it just feel kinda familiar? Well, there's a really specific reason for this flood of lookalike products, and understanding it is the key to, well, everything in the AI market right now.
So, the main culprit here is what we call an API wrapper. You can just think of it as a pretty face, a user interface slapped on top of a powerful commercial model like OpenAI's GPT or Anthropic's Claude. Now, they're incredibly fast to build, which is why we see them everywhere. But their competitive advantage? It's paper thin. I mean, anyone could copy their core features in a single afternoon.
And it's not just us who are feeling this fatigue. The people with the money have definitely caught on. When a powerhouse incubator like Y Combinator flat out says they're done funding API wrappers, that's a huge signal that this business model is basically a dead end. So that begs the question, what's the alternative?
Okay, so in this explainer, we're going to map out a path that goes way beyond the wrapper. We'll start by really digging into the problem. Then we'll lay out a new 3-tier landscape for AI apps. From there, we'll get into the fun stuff, the 2 key techniques for building a real advantage, training a unique AI personality and giving it a specialized library. And then we'll see how those 2 things combine to create this powerful, compounding advantage that's almost impossible for anyone else to copy. To really get the path forward, we need a whole new way of looking at the market. See, it's not just about building an app. It's about a fundamental choice you have to make. Are you going to rent your AI's core capabilities, or are you going to own them? This one decision has massive, and I mean massive, implications for your business.
We can basically break down all AI applications into 3 tiers. So, Tier 1 is like renting a furnished apartment. Sure, you get the basics, but you can't really change the layout. That's your simple wrapper. Tier 2 is like, okay, you can redecorate, you can fine-tune a commercial model through its API, but you're still stuck with the landlord's rules. But Tier 3 is like building your own house from the ground up. You take full control. You fine-tune open-source models. You host your own knowledge systems. This is where you build a real defensible moat.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. Look at the economics here. A Tier 1 wrapper is lucky to break even. You're handing over almost all of your revenue directly to the API provider. But a Tier 3 system? We're talking about margins over 90%. This isn't just a technical decision, it's a complete game changer for your entire business model.
So the choice is pretty stark, right? You can rent capability from a big provider. It's fast, sure, but you're building on someone else's land with these razor-thin margins. Or you can build it yourself. It's a little harder upfront, but you create a lasting, profitable asset that you control completely.
So how do we actually build one of these Tier 3 systems? Well, it all starts with the first pillar, giving your AI a unique personality, a way of thinking that goes way, way beyond just a simple instruction and a prompt.
Here's the big problem with only relying on prompts. They're not permanent. You know, imagine you build this amazing Socratic coaching AI. At first, it's brilliant, asking these deep, insightful questions. But after, say, 15 turns in a conversation, it just starts to drift back to its generic, helpful assistant mode. That's because the prompt is just a suggestion. The model's real personality is baked deep into its programming, what we call its weights. The solution here is to think of the AI in 2 parts, its brain and its library. Fine-tuning is what changes the brain. It literally shapes how the AI thinks, its core personality, its style. Retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, that's what gives it a library. It determines what the AI knows, all the facts and documents it can look up in real time.
Now I know what you might be thinking. Fine-tuning? That sounds incredibly expensive and complicated. And you know what? Until very recently, you would have been absolutely right.
It required huge server farms, teams of PhDs. It was a game only the big companies with super deep pockets could afford to play.
But that world? It's over. Thanks to some amazing new techniques, you can now fine-tune a seriously powerful open-source model in just 13 minutes, get this, on a regular gaming graphics card. The barrier to entry has completely and totally collapsed. Building a unique AI brain is no longer some massive multi-year investment, it's an afternoon experiment.
Okay, so once you've crafted that custom brain, you need to give it a whole world of information to play with. This brings us to the second pillar, this dynamic system called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, that lets your model look up facts on the fly, just like a person would.
But not all RAG systems are built the same. Simple vector RAG is super cheap and easy, but it can kind of struggle with complex questions. Then on the other end, you have graph RAG. It's incredibly powerful for understanding tricky relationships, but man, it can be expensive to set up. And then there's light RAG, which is this really practical middle ground that gives you most of the power for just a fraction of the cost.
But here's the secret sauce, the pro tip. You don't actually have to choose just one. The most effective AI systems out there today are hybrids. They intelligently combine different retrieval methods to get the best of all worlds. You get the speed of vector RAG for simple stuff and the power of graph RAG for the really complex questions.
You can think of it like a super smart research assistant. First, a query router looks at the user's question and figures out what kind of question it is. Then it sends that query to the best search engine for the job, or maybe even a few of them. After that, a re-ranker acts like an editor, sifting through everything and picking out only the most relevant pieces of information. And finally, your fine-tuned AI uses that perfectly curated context to generate a really smart, accurate answer. So we've got our custom brain from fine-tuning, and we've got our powerful library from hybrid RAG. Now for the really cool part. Let's see how these two pieces come together to create the ultimate competitive advantage, what we call a data flywheel. It all starts when you launch your model, even if it isn't perfect yet. The goal here isn't perfection in a lab. It's about starting that learning process with real people, using your product in the messy, real world, and gathering data on what works and what doesn't.
See, every single time a user interacts with your AI, they're giving you incredibly valuable feedback. Sometimes it's obvious, like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but sometimes it's more subtle. All of this feedback becomes the raw material you use to create new training data that makes your AI smarter and helps it learn from its own mistakes. And this is where the magic starts. It creates this powerful, self-reinforcing loop. A better model brings in more users. More users generate more data. And more data lets you make the model even better. The advantage just starts to compound on itself, creating this incredible virtuous cycle. And this is the end game. Your system gets so good and it improves so quickly because of all this real-world data that it becomes almost impossible for a new competitor to ever catch up. Sure, they can copy your original idea, but they can't replicate the 18 to 24 months of user data that makes your AI uniquely intelligent. That, right there, is a real defensible moat.
And let's not forget, this isn't just a technical advantage, it's a complete transformation of your business. Instead of struggling with a flimsy 15% margin, you're sitting on a robust 95% margin. You can be profitable with just a handful of customers, instead of needing thousands just to cover your API bills. This is the difference between being dependent on venture capital and building a sustainable, profitable business from day one.
So this leaves us with a really fundamental question for the entire future of AI. As we look at this next wave of innovation, we just have to ask ourselves, are we actually building new capabilities and new intelligence, or are we simply renting it? The answer to that question is going to determine who builds the next generation of truly transformative AI companies.
That's the playbook. Grab the resources below, and I'll see you in the guild.